Hello friends and welcome to another video lesson from DBOS Talks. If you haven't subscribed yet, please click subscribe and click the bell so that you can be notified of new uploads. This is the 7th video in a playlist called Serious Fun with SQL, and here we'll be learning how to do SQL coding for readability and maintenance. Okay, so you're looking at the tool called SQL Developer, which is provided by Oracle when you install Oracle database. Okay, so coding, SQL coding, any kind of programming, there is something similar across the different flavors, the different languages, programming languages, be it Java, Python, whatever it is, including SQL. So the first, as you write a code, it will be easy for the one writing it at the time he's writing it. But after a few months, after years, you will forget certain things about why you put this code, why you use this or that. So it helps to have this structure for readability purposes and maintenance. So the first purpose, there could be many, but I am focusing on 4 of them. And the first purpose one example of coding for readability and maintenance is the use of indents. Okay, so the use of indents in coding, I will show you an example right now. Okay, here you're looking at some SQL code, a couple of if-then statements, which are not indented at all. So the use of indents is something we know in writing, in English writing, in any kind of writing in any language, composition. So indent is something like you do this for readability. The same happens or is true for programming languages, including SQL. So the use of indents in coding is the one that gives the most benefits in readability to any program code. Okay, this is an example of SQL code which doesn't have any indents in it, and you can see that here it's quite, you could say it's a bit easy to read, I don't know, but once it becomes a very long piece of code, it will be cumbersome to do debugging, to trace the flow of the logic, where it goes, where it branches out in case of this condition being true or not. So that is the code without the indents. Now let us look at the same code, this time with indents. So this is the same piece of code, but with indents. If you see, if, then, after the then, I indented this, then else, and then and if. What the indenting is doing is that it shows you in an obvious manner what levels, what parts of the code are at the same level. So if you will look at this if, this else, and this and if, they are the same level. They're at the same level, meaning this is the opening of the if and it closes at this point. While anything indented is a sub, okay? Or in this case, then if the condition, then do this, okay? Else, do this, execute this kind of block. As you can see, this sub block here is another set of if statements. If, then, having the same convention being followed in terms of indenting where it's needed. Okay, so that's the use of indents. It gives readability to a code, and a few years after being written, somebody who comes along and joins the team and sees this code will find it a bit easier to figure out the flow of the code just because of the indentation, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, so that's the first one. Second is this. The use of keywords, the keywords and reserved words are being written in uppercase. In SQL, as well as in other programming languages, there are keywords or reserved words, those that become part of a command. So here we're looking at an example of a select statement which has keywords. But the problem here is that even though we have already employed the use of indents, as you can see, still something is lacking because the keywords or the reserved words of SQL were not written in uppercase. Okay, so it would have been better if the keywords were in a more obvious color scheme. Although there is a color scheme here, it's in the keywords are in blue, but it may not be so obvious because the blue is so close to the black in terms of the shade of it. But if you set the keywords in uppercase, then it will be more obvious visually. Okay, so let's look at on the same piece of code, this time with uppercase being applied. Okay, so if you look at this is the initial code I've shown you, and then below it, it is showing the keywords in uppercase. Select the from, the where, and the union, and the order by. Okay, so it's the second technique, which is putting or showing keywords or reserved words in uppercase letters. Okay. The third we'll be looking at is this position of concatenation characters. Concatenation is a string manipulation technique wherein two or more characters are joined or strings are joined together with the use of this double pipe, which is also concatenation characters. Okay, example, if I will say Joe and then double pipe HN, this would result into a string of this value, No, that's the meaning of the concatenation character. Okay, so it's all good until you come up, you see, you use the concatenation character and it is a lot. It is all over the place. So let's look at this example over here. As you can see, at the end of each line, there is a concatenation. The concatenation characters are there, double pipe. Double pipe meaning select the value of this variable and join it with this special character, join it with this, etc. So for each line, I am using, at the end of each line, I'm using the double pipe, the concatenation character. So it will not, definitely it will not cause a syntax error. But in terms of readability, you could say that the presence of this double pipe sorts of kinds of gets in the way when you look at the code. You see, it's not as readable as it should have been. So the way around it is to reposition your concatenation characters to double pipe in this manner. Okay, so how is that? I positioned my concatenation characters at the beginning of each line. It will not change the logic of the SQL, but visually it is more appealing. It's clearer for you to look at when you're looking through the code because the double pipe doesn't get in the way of your vision. It doesn't block it. It doesn't cause confusion on when you look at this, when you look at this. You see, instead of it being written at the end of each line, I've written it at the start of each line. So they are perfectly aligned. The concatenation characters are aligned. Okay, so that's number 3. The fourth is the use of comments. So comment in any programming language is are words that will be ignored by the interpreter, that will be ignored by the whatever engine is interpreting the code. It will just be ignored. This is more for information of the developer, programmer, or of the user. As you look at the code, you will see the comments. So it is something that will be ignored by the program itself. Let's look at an example, an example here. So the example here shows a piece of code, PL/SQL code, which doesn't have comments, Now you will tell me that you can easily understand what this is doing if you know your SQL. Yes, maybe yes, but what if you're given a very long one? And how would you differentiate a piece of code with another one? So I'm saying you may be able to understand this, but it will take a bit of time, especially if it's a very lengthy piece of code. It will take some time for a developer, for a programmer, to figure out the purpose of the program code. You will have really to dig into it, and etc. You will look at the nuances, what constants are there, such and such. So the use of comments. This is an example of a piece of code that is not using comments. Now, what a big difference it makes once you add comments to this. Okay, so I added a single line comment by doing a double dash, double hyphen, if you may. And the comment just says, get customer details. So which one is really quicker? Reading the comments or reading through this piece of logic and trying to understand and digest it? For sure, this will be the easier way to go. You know, just by looking at it, you know for sure that this is the purpose of the code. It is meant to get customer details. Simple as that. Instead of tracing it here, seeing, you may not be even. What if in some projects you have table names that are cryptic? Like say what? RTF 1213500. Then you don't know what it is. It's a table name, but you don't know what it is. But here with a comment, a one-liner comment, it may be a multi-line. If you want to make a multi-line comment, no problem. You will use /*, and then you close it with the reverse, */ I will say get customer details for the, okay, whatever it may be. So here in this video, we learned a couple of things on how to make our SQL code readable, and also to aid in maintenance. Maintenance meaning for code maintenance for the coming days and years. Okay, I'm writing them down here. We touched on 4 points. There surely are more. It's more than 4, but I'm focusing on these 4. One is the use of indents. Second is keywords and reserved words being written in uppercase, gives it more visibility. They stand out, especially in cases wherein you are using a terminal, an environment like Unix, Linux, or even DOS, where there is no color coding scheme for the reserved words. Then this comes in handy. Third is the positioning of the concatenation characters, which is the double pipe used to join characters or strings. And last is the use of comments. There are 2 kinds of comments in Oracle, and as well as in other SQL flavors, the single line comment and the multi-line comment. So these, as well as others, will help you in a big way to make your SQL code more readable and easier to maintain. Okay, thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something new from this piece of video, and I hope to see you in the next video.